So good day everyone, my name is Emmanuel M. Combate. So now I will be reporting entitled The Problem of Human Trafficking. So first I will discussing the objectives. First is to identify the problem of human trafficking. Second, to discuss the different kinds of human trafficking and migrants. Third and lastly, to acknowledge the impact of human trafficking. So first, human trafficking, which involves the illegal trade of people for exploitation, is a major global issue that affects millions of individuals, migrant workers, many of whom are vulnerable to trafficking, contribute significantly to economies worldwide, making their protection a priority. Human trafficking is the illegal trade of humans for the purpose of exploitation or forced labor. It is a serious crime and violation of human rights. Human trafficking typically involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to control victims and make them perform activities against their will. There are several forms of human trafficking, including, first, sex trafficking. Victims are coerced, deceived, or forced into engaging in sex, work, or pornography. They are often controlled by threats, violence, or manipulation. Second, labor trafficking. Individuals are forced or coerced to work under harsh conditions, often in industries like agriculture, construction, domestic work, and manufacturing. They may be deprived of their wages, forced to work long hours, and live in poor conditions. Child trafficking. Children may be trafficked for purposely such as forced labor, sexual exploitation, illegal adoption, or use in child soldiering. Human trafficking is driven by the factors such as poverty, lack of education, political instability, and the demand for cheap labor or sex. Traffickers use various methods to recruit and control their victims, including physical violence, threats against the victims of the family, false promises of employment or a better life, and deceit. Once trafficked, victims are often trapped in a cycle of abuse with little hope of escape. The global scale of human trafficking is enormous, with millions of people affected worldwide. Governments, NGOs, and international organizations work together to combat trafficking, raise awareness, and support victims, but the crime remains a significant and complex challenge. So, we must go on to the scale of the problem. Human trafficking is a massive global issue, being the third largest criminal activity in the world. The International Labour Organization, or ILO, estimates that over 21 million people are victims of forced labor, which includes both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. This highlights the sheer scale and the widespread nature of trafficking, which often goes unnoticed in many societies. Forced labor. Victims are often trafficked across borders by organized crime syndicates. Traffickers exploit migration flows and economic disparities between countries, promising victims a better life abroad only to exploit them once they arrive. This transitional movement of people highlights the need of international cooperation between governments and organizations to tackle trafficking effectively. So we will go now to the economic impact of human trafficking. So trafficking generates vast profits in 2014. It was estimated that trafficking brought in $150 billion annually, underscoring the high profitable of the crime. These profits come from the exploitation of people, often involving forced labor, sexual exploitation, and other forms of abuse. Human trafficking has a large economic impact for several reasons, affecting not only the victims but also the governments, business, and society as a whole. The financial consequences of trafficking are far-reaching and multifaceted, which cost extending beyond immediate profits for traffickers to longer-term effects on economies and social structures. Here are the some main ways in which human trafficking generates a large economic impact. So first, profits for traffickers. Human trafficking is highly profitable, generating billions of dollars each year. According to the International Labor Organization, ILO, trafficking for forced labor generates an estimated $150 billion in illegal profits annually. This includes the scale of human beings for forced labor in industries such as agriculture, construction, domestic work, manufacturing, and the sex trade. Traffickers often operate across borders, with organized crime groups taking advantage of vulnerable individuals to maximize profit. The illegal nature of trafficking allows the traffickers to exploit workers without paying their wages, resulting in significant profits for criminal networks. So second, impact on healthcare system. Victims of human trafficking often suffer from a severe physical and mental issues, including injuries from abuse, malnutrition, and long-term psychological trauma. The cost of treating these victims, especially over the long term, can place a significant burden on healthcare systems. Trafficking survivors may also face mental health challenges such as PTSD, depression, and anxiety, which can require long-term therapy and treatment. The healthcare costs associated with the recovery and rehabilitation add to the economic impact of human trafficking. So third, impact on the international trade and relations, which countries with the high levels of human trafficking can face sanctions or trade restrictions from the other nation and international bodies like the European Union, World Trade Organization or WTO, or the United Nations. This can harm their trade relations, reduce access to foreign markets, and deter foreign investment. Human trafficking can also have broader diplomatic consequences. Countries found to be either sources to destination for trafficked labor may be pressured to take action against the practice. This can lead to economic isolation or diminished international standing, which can affect a country's ability to participate in global trade and political alliances. So third and lastly, efforts to combat human trafficking. There are many efforts to combat human trafficking involving cooperation between governments, the private sector, and NGOs. However, despite these efforts, the effectiveness of such initiatives varies greatly depending on the country, the resources available, and political will. In some cases, these are significant gaps in enforcement and victim support, leading in inconsistent results. International Labor Organization or ILO awareness campaign. The ILO runs the campaigns like the 80% forced labor campaign, aimed at informing the public about forced labor and its link to human trafficking, particularly in supply chains. Source: ILO Ending Forced Labor. Public awareness campaigns plays a crucial role in educating the public about recognizing the reporting trafficking, often leveraging social media and digital platforms for outreach. Technology is increasingly being used to track trafficking networks and connect victims with support services such as human trafficking hotline At the same time, efforts to reduce vulnerability by addressing root causes like poverty, gender inequality, and lack of education are essential in preventing trafficking. Migration policies are also being adjusted to provide safer, legal channels for people to avoid exploitative situation. Sources: International Labour Organization ILO, Forced Labor, Human Trafficking and Slavery, www.ilo.org. Since in the book that we use in our subject states that the migrants are more vulnerable to human trafficking and it has an impact at this moment, I will discuss furthermore what is migrants and integration of migrants. So, migrants are particularly vulnerable to human trafficking for several reasons, making migrations one of the major factors contributing to the global human trafficking problem. Migrant populations are the significant risk of becoming victims of human trafficking because traffickers prey on their vulnerabilities such as depression, lack of legal status, and limited access to information. Protecting the rights and the dignity of migrants is essential to prevent trafficking and ensure that migration can be pathway to opportunity rather than exploitation. So there are different types of migrants including economic. So first, economic migrants, people who move in search of better job opportunities, improved living standards, or to escape poverty in their home country. Second, refugees, individuals fleeing persecution, war, or violence in their home country and seeking protection in another country. Third is forced migrants, people who are compelled to move due to factors like conflict, human trafficking, or natural disasters. Seasonal migrants, individuals who temporarily move for work, often related to agricultural seasons or other short-term employment opportunities. And lastly, labor migrants, people who move for employment purposes, often working in industries like agriculture, construction, or domestic work. So we will go on in the integration of migrants. Integration of migrants is a complex process that involves the social, economic, and cultural inclusion of migrants into the host societies. As migration continues to grow globally, it is crucial to understand the challenges and opportunities in the integration of migrants, as well as the impact of migration on both the migrants themselves and the receiving countries. So we will go back to the topic of integration of migrants. So integration of migrants has an economic contributions. Migrants contribute positively to the economies of the countries they move to, especially in developed nations. Migrant workers often fill jobs in essential sectors like agriculture, construction, and healthcare. This contribution boosts GDP and can help address labor shortage. However, the economic benefits of migration vary depending on the country of origin, the skills of the migrants, and the policies and receiving countries. So second is challenges to assess. Migrants often face numerous barriers to full integration into their host societies. This includes in difficulty in accessing housing, healthcare, and education, which can hinder their social mobility and well-being. And third, citizenship and rights. Citizenship plays a key role in helping migrants integrate and assimilate into society. Being granted citizenship provides migrants and legal rights such as access on social serving, voting, and protection against deportation. Integration is a two-way process involving both the migrants and the host societies. Successful integration benefits everyone. Migrants become part of the social fabric, contributing economically, culturally, and socially, while host countries gain from their skills and diversity. So we will go back, or we will discussing the policies responses. Government initiatives. Government have put various policies in place to help migrants, such as providing multilingual documents to ease communication and offering training or counseling programs to assist in the transition. This initiative are intended to protect migrants and help them become part of the economic and social fabric of the host country. Example, the national anti-trafficking laws. Governments have enacted and strengthened laws to criminalize human trafficking and related offenses including forced labor and sexual exploitation. These laws aim to prosecute traffickers, dismantle trafficking networks, and protect victims. Second is specialized task force and law enforcement. Many countries have established dedicated anti-trafficking task forces that coordinate efforts among law enforcement agencies to identify the prosecutors, traffickers, rescue victims, and disrupt trafficking operations. For instances, the US, including the Philippines, Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE and Federal Bureau of Investigation or FBI work together to investigate trafficking cases. For example, in the United States, in the Trafficking Victims of Protection Act, TVPA, is a comprehensive law that defines human trafficking, provides support for victims, and mandates the prosecution of traffickers. In the United Kingdom, the Modern Slavery Act of 2015 established harsher penalties for traffickers and introduced a requirement of business to ensure the supply chains are free from slavery and trafficking. Private sectors efforts. The private sectors plays a role as well, with companies engaging in culturally sensitive hiring practices, promoting diversity in the workplace, and supporting cultural exchange programs. Retailers and businesses are often involved in efforts and cause their supply chain do not rely on forced labor, while also fostering an inclusive environment for migrant workers. Evaluation of initiatives. The success of both government and private sectors' efforts to combat trafficking and integrate migrants is mixed. While some programs show promise, challenges such as limited funding, political resistance, and the persistence of discriminatory attitudes can undermine their effectiveness. So we will go now the global migration as a complex process. Migration is a multifaceted phenomenon that impacts individuals and societies in diverse ways. While migration offers individuals opportunity for better living conditions, employment, and education, it can also lead to displacement and vulnerability. Migrants may face exploitation, discrimination, and poor working conditions, particularly in the illegal migration contexts where they are at risk of trafficking and abuse. Second, economic dependency of migrants. Developed countries, especially in the West, are highly dependent on migrant labor to fill critical roles in sectors such as agricultural, construction, healthcare, and technology. These nations rely on migrants to maintain their economic growth, address labor shortage, and support aging population. Third, future outlook. Human trafficking and migration are likely to remain critical issues in the coming decades. As migration patterns evolve due to the factors like climate change, conflict, and economic inequality, the vulnerabilities of migrants may increase. The ongoing need for migrants labor in developed countries must be balanced with measures to protect migrants from exploitation, trafficking, and discrimination. So in summary, human trafficking and migration are intricately connected issues that must be addressed together. While migration can provide opportunities for people to improve their lives, it also exposes them to risk, especially in contexts where exploitation is rampant. Continued policy adaptation, strong enforcement of anti-trafficking measures, the greater acceptance and integration of migrants are essential to building a more unjust, equitable, global migration system. Addressing these challenges will require international cooperation, investment in migrants, protection systems, and unwavering commitment to uphold the rights and dignity of migrants worldwide. So that is all about my report. So thank you everyone for listening. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you.